right now, you've heard me say this many times before, that I believe that we are in a moment in time in history, and it's not going to be a good moment. It's going to be a shameful moment and a disgraceful moment. And 20 years from now, 30 years from now, when they're reading about the stuff in the history books, they're not going to believe the kind of things that we did, the irresponsible things that we did to our children and to our grandchildren and to future generations. And we are in that moment in time right now where a lot of things are coming together all at once. We have a perfect storm going on. And what I'm going to be focusing on today is the monetary system, the financial system. Now, I grew up so I was born in 1960, right? So I grew up I really grew up in basically the 70s and 80s, right? Those are my formative years, right? So I grew up with bell-bottom jeans and velour shirts and, record players and cassette players, cars that actually ran on gasoline. We didn't have cell phones. If our friends wanted to do something, that night, they would have to call the house. And if I wasn't there, they'd leave a message with my mom telling me where to meet them and stuff. So that's the era that I grew up in. And back then, we paid for everything in cash. Well, we have a whole generation of kids right now who I think have never even held a dollar bill. There are probably teenagers out there who don't know, what a $5 bill looks like, or if they do, it's quaint, So we have a whole generation right now that is used to not having cash, and the thing that the government is doing right now to push us toward these CBDCs. And for those of you who don't know, CBDC is an acronym for Central Bank Digital Currency. And you'd be surprised how many people still don't know what they are. But they're in for a very rude awakening very quickly here. And but they've been prepping us, right? It's like the proverbial slow boiling of the frog in water by slowly turning up the heat, right? People don't really realize, what's going on. It just feels normal and comfy and warm until they're dead. And the way they've been turning up the heat on us, the way they've been slow boiling us is by doing little things like making it difficult to get our money out of our bank. If any of you have had any difficulty getting money out of your bank, you leave a comment. Let me know what your experience was. Did they ask you personal questions like, so what are you going to do with this money? Are they asking you? I mean, the nerve of these people. All right, so let's remember that any money that you have sitting in your bank is legally not considered your money. All right, are we all clear on that? If this is the first time you're hearing about it, please take that to heart. Any money that you have sitting in the bank is not legally your money. As soon as you make that deposit into your bank account, it's no longer yours. The bank is free to do whatever they want with it. And what do? They take your money, they give you your tiny little bit of interest rate on it, and then they go out and loan it in form of car loans, mortgages, credit cards, small businesses at much higher rates. And that's how they make their money. And it's free money for them. And if they were to make some bad decisions and the bank were to go bankrupt or go belly up, well, you are last in line to get paid. You are an unsecured creditor. So any money you have sitting in your bank, just be clear that I just want you to understand that you do not own that money. It's not your money. Okay. Now, most of us were brought up being taught that the banks are safe and secure. That's the conservative thing to do. Oh, I don't play the stock market. I just put my money in the bank. And now my younger son, he's a full-blown adult, right? And he never watches my YouTube videos. So, but I'm not going to expose anything personal about him. But he's kind of a worker bee type, but he's very good worker, very honest worker. He's a good young man. But he puts all his money in the bank. That's all he does with it. Okay, and he doesn't do any real investing. As much as I try to get him to do things, he just puts it in the bank. Well, a couple of weeks ago, I did finally convince him to start pulling his money out of the bank. I said, at the very least, I want you to get more than half of it out. So he finally agreed, and it took him a week to get it all out. But he still has half of that money in the bank. So now I never asked my son how much money he had. I don't ask my two boys anything about their finances. I'm old-fashioned that way. It's none of my business. It's kind of a weird topic for me because I grew up in a household where I didn't dare ask my dad how much money he made. And my dad was a barber, supporting 6 kids. So we never had any, real money. But you never asked your parents about their income. You just didn't do it. And so I feel the same way toward my kids. I figure it's none of my business. That's personal stuff. Anyway, so when he came home from the bank on the first trip, he did tell me, well, Dad didn't expect him to have, and he mentioned the number. And I said, what? That little stinker. He's been squirrely. He's saved an awful lot of money without doing anything with it. He just put it in the bank, which is a terrible thing to do because your money's not safe. It's a depreciating asset, all the rest of it. Well, okay, so now we are going to be moving a large chunk of his dough into gold and silver. He's already signed up for 7K metals because I opened up an account for him and my other son months ago. And without telling them, I signed up for the autosaver. They've been getting their coins. But now, hell, with that kind of money, take over your own autosaver for crying out loud. So he's going to take over his own 7K metals account. And inside of his 7K, he's going to buy a boatload of gold and silver. And as soon as he gets that done, hopefully by the end of this week, I'm going to feel a whole lot better. But my son is not a unique story. Okay, that's what most people do. Most people just put money in the bank because they perceive it as safe. Well, it's not safe. Any money sitting in your bank is not safe. Okay, so remember the 3 recommendations on my channel have always been: number 1, reduce your exposure to your bank; number 2, put some of that money into gold and silver; and number 3, establish streams of passive recurring income. If you do those 3 simple things, you're way ahead of most people. Okay, but circling back to how they're setting us up. So the central bank digital currency that they want us all eventually to be on is the government's answer to like Bitcoin. Now this has been in the works for years. This just didn't come out. It didn't drop out of the sky, last week. It's been in development. It is there. They're not just looking at it. They're not just studying it. It is there. And personally, I think they've been waiting for a black swan event to introduce these CBDCs. Well, we had kind of a black swan event a few weeks ago with this SVB Bank and Credit Suisse, right? All right, those are pretty big, but there are bigger events coming. Trust me. One thing I want to kind of predict, and I'll make another prediction. And as you know, my predictions are pretty darn good. Okay, I've been nailing them during the entire course of my channel here. Well, my next big prediction is the things that are going on with the financial industries so far is just the tip of the iceberg. And I'll tell you, my prediction for the next big black swan event in the financial industry is this fall, and about 3 months away, which is not very far. And I'll tell you why. Okay, you will notice that the SVB Bank and the Credit Suisse fiasco all happened at the end of the quarter, right at the end of the quarter, conveniently. All right. Now, all these banks have an incestuous relationship, right? So I promise you, there are a lot of other banks out there in very serious trouble, but we don't know it yet. And we might not know about it until the end of next quarter, when they got to open their books, when they got to report their numbers again, officially. So you probably have a lot of, CFOs out there at these banks, biting their nails, hoping that something changes over the next 3 months. Because I think that a lot of these balance sheets, a lot of these banks look really bad for the same reason that SVB and Credit Suisse have. And the big culprit in the demise in the current trouble in the financial system is the rapid increase in interest rates by the Federal Reserve. Okay, we've talked about that before. Bonds have an inverse relationship with interest rates, right? So as interest rates go up, the value of bonds go down, even your most conservative bonds. A lot of these banks have, a vault full of U.S. Treasuries that they thought, were pretty safe. I mean, hell, they're U.S. government securities, for crying out loud. But the Federal Reserve, and look, they had to have known that this would happen. That when they raise rates that much, it's going to reduce the value on these banks' balance sheets and create all sorts of havoc. Well, okay, now this is where I'm going to sound like a conspiracy nut again. But it's funny how all of my conspiracy theories over the past 2 years have all come true. So, look, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm just one guy on YouTube, right? But I do have 30 years of experience on Wall Street for whatever that's worth. And I'm going to give you my take on what's going on right now with this change in the entire financial system. I don't think the Fed is crying too much, or if they are crying, they're crocodile tears for any of these smaller banks that are starting to go out of business. Because in their end game is they want to be a one bank operation, the Federal Reserve. Okay, so they start with the low-hanging fruit, right? The small and regional banks. Okay, get rid of those guys, and everyone's going to take their money and move them to. We already saw that in the SVB fiasco, right? People pulled their money out of their smaller banks and started putting it into larger banks on the assumption that they'll be more likely to be bailed out by the government because they're bigger banks, right? Because they're too big to fail. Okay, so let's just, for argument's sake, let's say the small and regionals, first time out, low-hanging fruit, okay, they're gone. Okay, and then the medium-sized banks, okay, we got to get rid of those guys. And again, that process is going to continue. People are going to start pulling their money out of those banks. So the money is always going to flow up to the bank that they perceive are the safest, the JP Morgans of the world, right? So let's say the Federal Reserve can get the financial system down to 3 or 4 major banks. All right, that's a pretty darn good start. All right, and now the coup de grace. All right, these $1 quadrillion worth of derivative exposure in the financial industry. Did you know that JP Morgan all by itself has $55 trillion of face value exposure to derivatives? Now, derivatives are a very risky investment. They're a very aggressive investment, and they're very leveraged, right? And the CDS market was the culprit behind the 2008-2010 financial crisis. If you haven't seen the movie The Big Short, you should watch that, and because it really explains what happened there really well. But those CDCs that were the culprit in the last time around, well, they're going to be the culprits again, because these bankers have not learned their lesson. The exposure now by these banks to the derivatives market is larger than it was back then. Larger. All right, so JP Morgan has 55 trillion in derivatives all by themselves, right? The top 5 banks, by the way, in the world, in the country, they have 200 trillion. But let's just talk about JP Morgan. So $55 trillion. Okay, so if there is one bad day in the market, and let's say these derivatives, they suffer a 10% loss. Hell, even if it took a week for them to lose 10%. Well, if you have what's 10% of 55 trillion? That's $5.5 trillion, right? Let's be generous. Let's call it $5 trillion. Okay, $5 trillion. Okay, JP Morgan is gone. That's it. That's all it would take. So one wrong day, one bad day in the derivatives market, and JP Morgan is gone, along with the other major banks. And that's going to leave the Federal Reserve standing alone. And I think that is their end game. They want this to be a one bank operation, the Federal Reserve. the Federal Reserve, which, by the way, is not a bank, right? It's called the Federal Reserve Bank, but first of all, they're not federal. It's a private operation. Did you know that? Federal Reserve has nothing to do with the government. It's a federal, I mean, it's a private bank owned by a cabal of private individuals. Okay, that should send nerves up your spine right there alone. There's a good book on this topic called The Creature from Jekyll Island that everyone should read. That book, boy, I wish they would make a movie out of that. It's a spectacular book. It is the defining book on how the Federal Reserve came to be and what they do and what their true objectives are. Anyway, so do you guys remember a couple of years ago when our current president nominated this communist to be the head of the currency? And her name is Professor Omarosa. And she had written papers on how it was preferable. And this was a professor, right, at one of these Ivy League schools. And she's a former graduate of Moscow University, back when Russia was still a communist country. Okay, and she was promoting the Federal Reserve as the only bank in the country. That was her. This is the kind of people they're putting forward. Okay, so they kind of showed their hand about what their true intentions are in the financial system. So why would they want a one bank operation? What's the benefit of that? Well, it's about control. Okay, we are moving into a socialist society here, a socialist system, and it almost doesn't matter anymore who the elected officials are. We have so many people embedded into our bureaucracy right now who believe in this system that they're the ones really running the show. They're the ones who are really setting the policies. And they're getting their marching orders largely from other unelected officials in a foreign country, namely the WEF, right? So it's all about control. Now here's the evil about CBDCs, okay? Central bank digital currencies. Now, don't confuse that with Bitcoin. Bitcoin is an actual digital currency. And the two big differences are that Bitcoin is decentralized. There's no one person who can control it, right? It's dispersed. It's all math. It's all algorithm. And the code is immutable. It can't be changed. There are 21 million shares of Bitcoin. That's all there will ever be. All right. So it is completely decentralized and it is non-programmable. Whereas you have the CBDCs, which are centralized. The Federal Reserve is going to control the coins, and they're programmable. The programmable portion is the most evil part of this. The fact that they're centralized is bad enough all by itself. But the fact that they're going to be programmable, the government can dictate what you can spend your money on. Okay, again, it's not your money. It's going to be held at the Federal Reserve, and they're going to have control over it. If you want to buy a hamburger and your medical records, because they'll have that access to that too, your medical records say that your cholesterol is too high, you're not going to be allowed to use your digital currencies to buy a hamburger. Or what if you voted for the wrong party? Or heaven forbid, what if you wanted to buy a gun? Okay, and you go to buy it, and they say, "Oh, sorry, the Federal Reserve won't let you spend your coins on a gun or whatever." The government can control what you spend your money on. Now, one way that they can affect the growth of the economy through CBDCs is there's a high likelihood, in my opinion, that there is going to be a use it or lose it scenario. Okay, where they say, "Okay, so you worked really hard at your job at Home Depot and you managed to accumulate 5,000 CBDCs, okay, but you have 8 months to use them. In 8 months, they expire." You know, kind of like a gift card, right? Okay, and so and they're going to tell you now if you go and spend it on a piece of crap solar panels, you'll get a discount or you'll get little perks. But if you go and spend it on I don't know a car that burns gasoline, your coins will only be worth half or something. They're going to program, so they're going to be able to control our lives. Our lives are never going to be the same. Our privacy is going to be gone. Okay? And for me, that's the real thing that sticks in my craw. They're taking away our freedoms at every opportunity they get. And, most people are not paying attention. So, what does it say? The only thing that evil needs in order to succeed is for good people to do nothing, right? And we are not doing anything. We are sheep, okay? Well, not people in my audience, not you guys. If you've been watching my channel and if you subscribe to my channel, then you are obviously like-minded human beings and you are paying attention and you're learning about this stuff. So good for you. By the way, could you mind, please give me a like if you haven't yet, and let's wake up the algorithm. And if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe to my channel because it does help grow my channel as well. Okay, so bear with me a second here. Please humor me while I put my glasses on to check the comment section to see whether I'm up to speed or not. Yeah. So banks will just be different labels, packages for the Federal Reserve. Hey, Prizzy. Well, yeah, well, listen, this isn't going to happen overnight, right? Eventually, this is what the Federal Reserve wants. This is their dream list, right? They want that's their dream scenario, that in the end, it'll just be the Fed. But it's going to take probably a couple of years or a few years to get there. Again, it's that boiling frog phenomenon, right? They don't want to do it all at once. They don't want to shock people. They're slowly making this transition. Actually, it doesn't feel as slow to me. And you feel it every time you go to the bank and notice that you cannot get all of your money out that you want to get out, or they start asking you personal questions. You kind of feel it. Or you go to a pizza place and they tell you, oh, we don't accept cash. Have any of you had that experience? Have any of you tried to buy something and the person, I know Rob Brust told me that he was at the grocery store last week and the person in front of her had the cashier tell them, oh, we don't accept cash. Have any of you had that experience where you have businesses out there not accepting cash? So what they do is they're warming you up to the idea of not having cash. They're getting used to that idea. Well, look, so our bank's a different label for Federal Reserve. Let's see. Okay, so I answered your question, Prizzy. Good. Glad to hear it. Okay, so listen, there's a few. I have a few sayings that I kind of live by. When I'm talking to people. One of those sayings is that a salary is a drug that your employer gives you in order to get you to give up on your dreams, to forget about your dreams, right? And I think most of you know what I mean by that, right? The old acronym, job is not just a word, it's also an acronym for just over broke. So what I try to do is give people ideas, give you a ways to secure your sovereignty in whatever way I can think of. And the most effective way is financially. You want to be as financially secure as possible. You want to be in a position to give the government or whomever the proverbial polite middle finger, as much as possible when it comes to finances, right? Oh, you want to give me a speeding ticket, even though I was going the right now? Oh, there it is. There's your money. Leave me alone. You want to raise the cost of a steak, double it up? That's fine. I can handle it. There you go. You want to be in a position where you want to be in kind of an FU scenario where you're good. All right. So the very first thing you have to do is you have to reduce your exposure to your bank. Okay. Yeah. Disclaimer alert. I'm not a financial advisor. Okay. I'm just a guy on YouTube. Okay, this is not financial advice. This is life advice, as they say, right? It's just one friend to, several 100,000 others, hopefully. But you have to reduce your exposure to your bank. And I know I've got one person who's on the channel here, Dave. I'm sure you. Hopefully, you won't mind me using you as an example. Dave is one of my heroes in life. He reduced his exposure to FTX way back when, and when FTX went under, he didn't get hurt. So beautiful job, Dave. Dave's one of the smartest people you'll ever meet. But if you wait until the big event happens before you do something, it's going to be too late. You don't want to be one of those people standing in line during a bank run to get your money out. All right, don't be one of the people. Start reducing your exposure to your bank now and get some of the money into gold and silver. All right, where are my props? I got so much stuff here. Should have got my props ready. All right, your gold and silver. Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry, you guys. You just have to do it. I can only think of one asset that I would want to have my real assets parked in, even more than real estate, frankly. Now they say that the three best forms of hard assets to have in the form of when financial crisis happens are real estate, gold, and silver. I personally don't like real estate because there's too much I cannot control with real estate. And besides, in the next financial crisis, when all hell breaks loose, I promise you, real estate's going to get clobbered as well. What I'd rather do is preserve my assets in these guys, which I can buy and sell with the push of a button through my 7K metals account. And then I'll go out and buy that real estate that people are selling because they're desperate or they're getting foreclosed on. Okay, they're selling their house not because they want to, but because they have to. Okay, that's the position I want you guys to be in. If you play your cards right, you don't have to be a victim in the upcoming financial crisis. You can benefit from it. You can take advantage of it. One of the unknown facts about the Great Depression is that an awful lot of millionaires were created during the Depression, because they took advantage of it. And I want you guys to be in that position. Take advantage of it. Now, for someone out there who likes to trade, for example, this is a trader's market, by the way. If you're a trader, this is a trader's market. However, my suggestion for most people these days is, don't bother. You're better off farming out the trading to an outfit like Daisy FX. You've heard me talk about Daisy FX. That's a program, that it's a trading platform that uses AI, artificial intelligence. What you're better off doing is just let them trade your money for you. And then it's a 70-30 split, right? They take 30 and you take 70, which is standard in the industry. And I've been in Daisy FX now since last April, and I've been in since September, but it's been around since last April. And since April, it's up over 700%. Last year, not too bad. Okay. How long will your money have to sit in the bank to make half that? Like 500,000 years? So my advice to most people these days is for your growth is turn to something like Daisy. And I've got a whole playlist of videos on Daisy FX and 7K Metals. 7K Metals is a program that I use for my gold and silver, so watch those. All right, so that was my main message for today. Is I wanted to make sure everyone is aware of what's going on here with the banks, with the financial markets, and I don't want you to dawdle. They say the stats out there are that less than 1/10 of 1% of the world population own any gold and silver. 1/10 of 1%. So if you want to make it into the 1% club, all you have to do is go out and buy one silver coin. Oh, Ed, I can't afford one. Come on, give me a break. There's nobody who can't afford one silver coin. Nobody. Even you find me the most desperate homeless person out there in the streets of wherever, and they can buy a silver or gold. They get these checks from the government's all over the place, right? Well, set aside $30 and go out and buy a silver coin. So anybody can start acquiring silver and gold. And with the 7K metals program, by the way, they have what they call the auto saver program, where you sign up and they will automatically buy X amount of silver for you every month for you automatically. It's a really good disciplined way of starting to accumulate your silver. And I'm a big fan. Okay, well, I'm going to call that the end of the live stream here before I start getting myself into trouble and talking more about the government. But are there any final questions you guys would like to throw into the chat box before I go? All right, guys. Well, thank you for being here. It's a lot of fun. This is still kind of an awkward format for me, but I am learning. I'm hoping to get better as I go along. So please, hit that alert button so you see future live streams. I'm going to try to do more of these. So hit the subscribe button, hit the alert button so you see them when they're coming up. And please always give my videos a like if you don't mind, because it helps. It doesn't cost you anything, and I'm not going to email you unless you ask me to. All right, so Edward Anderson, live from Minnesota, signing out. Thanks, guys. And now I got to figure out how to exit the live stream here again. Oh, thank you, Prizzy.